Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. The recording has started, so Roberto, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome again. We're very excited to be back here for this series of webinars and workshops with our partners over at Vectorworks, who, as you may know, is a global design and BIM software developer that, just like the AIS, is looking to upskill the next generation of designers. Vectorworks is a proud sponsor of the AIS since 2018, engaging students in various aspects of their software, ranging from BIM workflows with real-time rendering, foundational strategies to help you get started with Vectorworks, and even tips and tricks to form incredible presentations. Now, learning about new software technology is always a crucial factor that can help propel you to the forefront of the design and architecture professions. And today's workshop is going to be centered around exactly that. Please welcome our Vectorworks speakers, Luis Ruiz, Senior Architect Product Specialist, Tony Kostreski, Senior Landscape Product Specialist, and here with us today, Ryan Butler, Architect Product Specialist at Vectorworks. They're here to give us a 3D modeling showcase in Vectorworks and to tell us what's new in Vectorworks 2025. Thank you for being here, Ryan, and we're very excited to hear what you have for us today. The floor is yours, in case you want to introduce yourself.
Hi guys, I'm Ryan. I'm from New York. It's happy to be here, and we're gonna have a Q&A session at the end of this video so we can chat about Vectorworks.
Perfect. That being said, let's get started.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the webinar. Thanks for joining us. My name is Ryan Butler, and I'm an Architect Product Specialist at Vectorworks. I'm here to speak with you about modeling in Vectorworks and also show you some of the new features in Vectorworks 2025. Before we begin, here are some housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on the AIAS YouTube channel for on-demand viewing. Also, there will be a live Q&A session at the end of the webinar to talk about any questions you may have. Now I'd like to introduce the presenters for today. Luis Ruiz, Senior Architect Product Specialist, Tony Kostreski, Senior Landscape Product Specialist, and myself, Ryan Butler, Architect Product Specialist. Luis, Tony, and I will showcase some of the many versatile tools and workflows in Vectorworks that are both Vectorworks Fundamentals and Vectorworks Architect. Today's presentation will cover the following learning objectives. Identify the various 3D modeling technologies in Vectorworks. Discuss the process of 3D modeling your work and creating its associated 2D drawings. Describe the range of rendering styles available to depict and present your project, and showcase some of the exciting new features in Vectorworks 2025. All right, let's get started. First up is Luis, then Tony, and then myself.
Hello. Happy to be part of this webinar. Let's get right to it. I want you to learn the benefits of one of the most sophisticated 3D tools in Vectorworks Fundamentals called Subdivision. So, for you to get a clear idea of the objects you can model with this powerful tool, I selected a few from my past projects. In some cases, shapes like this one, a pavilion of some sort, like a rib cage or an outdoor tunnel. I also have a few smaller samples like this side table made of multiple stacking materials. Over here we have a simple sofa, but please take a closer look to the armrest, the cushions, and the pillows. Cage modeling, also known as subdivision modeling, was initially developed for the animation and entertainment industry. This technology was licensed from Pixar Studios, and since 2016, we've been able to provide our users with the power of 3D exploration. Subdivision modeling is all about the cage. And if you ask me what this tool feels like, I would say it's closer to playing with clay. Now, where do we start? By learning about primitive shapes. These are simple starting objects. Some of them have volume, and the rest are just flat surfaces. Our subdivision tool lives on our 3D modeling toolset. By double-clicking on its icon, we can create our first shape. We'll start with a simple sphere. While selected, check out the info palette. There are different values for iteration. A higher number makes the sphere smoother, and a lower number reduces its surfaces count. The next thing I want you to learn is that many objects can be transformed. While an object is selected, go to the Modify top menu, down to Convert, and locate Convert to Subdivision. Here you will be given the option to select the iteration density, but you'll have the option to change it later in case you need it. Now let me select this corrugated solid. We'll find the Convert to Subdivision menu. Now let's get closer and I'll show you what editing and rescaling a subdivision feels like. I'll select the Transform and Rescale mode, and I'll resize its top by pulling from the 3D dragger. There are other surfaces available, but I'm going to skip to this face mask. I believe this is a mesh. One of the benefits of this transformation is that we can make the face features ultra smooth. Great for creating content. Now let's take a closer look at the tool. When selecting the subdivision icon from the modeling toolset, you'll have a series of modes on the top bar. To start, you'll be concentrated on just a few modes: the transform mode, the crease, the extrude, and the split mode. You'll need these three on the right: translate and rotate, scale, and reposition. And depending on the face of the cage, these two alignment modes. Here's the best way to practice using the subdivision tool. I would recommend creating all of the primitives and align them like this. One by one, select each of the primitives and start the transformation. Every time you make a change, slide a duplicate and keep going with more and more explorations. Start with a sphere. Make sure you include all of the modes, and in no time, you'll find yourself feeling comfortable manipulating new shapes. Depending on your type of projects, you'll find that some of these modes will become your favorites. For me, creating furniture content requires a lot of splitting edges and creating wrinkles. Okay, by now, I guess you want to see some action. So let's pretend we want to win a commission for an installation art. And here's a sketch of the artwork I have in mind. I'll start a project with a simple block, an extruded rectangle. Then I'll select it and convert it to a subdivision object. If I leave it as iteration 0, I'll keep the same shape. But I know I needed a 3, and you'll see why. I know I need to flatten the end faces. I'll use a crease mode, and I'll click on these faces to make them flat. One here, another one here, and here. For my next step, I'll use the split mode. I'll start touching this edge and type 50 for the percentage. I can also find the middle snap points to divide each face in half, a few vertically and just a few times horizontally. Next, I'll add a few more splits near the previous ones. No need for precision. I'm just eyeballing the distance. Just give me a few seconds. Still adding a few more. And this is enough. Oops, I forgot one more. Okay, and done. Now I'll go back and use my first mode, transform. I'll select this quadrant over here. While I press Shift on my keyboard, I'll add more selections. Now I'll change the alignment, and I'll grab this arrow and pull them all just about here and here. Yes, that looks good. It feels very bubbly. I won't do the rest. This is fine. I guess you get the idea. Now let me move on to the final shape. I saved it for you in advance. If I show you the cage, you will see I move these control points closer to the top, and over here I pinch them all closer together. This one is what I originally had in mind. I also tried to experiment with wrinkles, something that looks very bulky, like bulky waves. This last one is a combination of waves and puffy boxes, but I could still use it if I change the base just a little. Don't know yet. Okay, let's move on and I'll show you how we can morph this subdivision object even further. As you see, I have a series of extrudes surrounding the blob. I'll select them both, and from the model menu, I'll select the intersect solid operation. Done. The next move will be to add a texture. Just a matter of selecting the object, and from the info palette, under the render tab, right here is where we can assign and control the textures and its mapping. I made another option over here, and this reminds me I need to show you the benefits of modeling history. If we get inside this object, you'll see I have a subtraction of two objects. If I move the concentric circles to one side and then hit the exit button, we'll see how easy it is to make changes. Back here, I have one of my favorites. You can tell it is our subdivision waves intersecting with vertical solids. I find it to be a very cool effect. Since we can create presentation renderings inside this same program, here's a view to our first proposal. Perhaps the material could be some type of fabric, but we can always change it and show more options, like changing the material to be some type of reflecting plastic or maybe thin foil paper. If we want to take it to the next level, we could add LED lights between the gaps. I think the overall effect is very creative. I think it's going to be effective. But what about the other options we created? We could propose the one with concentric circles. I can see the reflection on the wood floor could be visually something very interesting. Here's a last one. The waving pattern and lights, I think so far is my favorite. I could even see the LED lights on the back changing colors at different cycles. And finally, I wanted to show you that animations can also be created inside fundamentals. This is another great way to explain a project. Well, I certainly enjoy giving you ideas of what subdivision is all about. But I will leave you in good hands with a talented colleague. Screen is all yours, my friend.
Hi everyone, my name is Tony Kostreski. I'm a Senior Landscape Product Specialist at Vectorworks, and I'm thrilled to be here today to show you how you can model this sculpture shade structure in Vectorworks Fundamentals through NURBS modeling. The tools and commands that I'm going to cover include NURBS curves, NURBS surfaces, surface array objects, extrude, and extrude along path. Now let's quickly go over some of these terms. First, NURBS curves are mathematical representations of smooth, continuous curves. I want you to think about garden hoses or flexible rulers if you've ever used one. You can bend it into any shape you want, but it will always be smooth and continuous. They are made up of a series of control points, and you can move those control points to change the shape of the curve. We'll dive into that in just a moment. NURBS surfaces, on the other hand, are mathematical representations of smooth, continuous surfaces. So I want you to think about balloons. You can inflate the balloon into any shape, but it will always be smooth and continuous. The surface of the balloon will be the NURBS surface. Now in Vectorworks, there are two methods of drawing a NURBS curve. You can draw using the control point mode, which will have the curve pass between the vertex points or control points. Adjusting the control points with the reshape tool will adjust the overall shape of the curve. The other mode is interpolation point mode, which will have the curve pass through the interpolation points or clicks and interpolate the location of the control points that usually lies beyond the curve. You can still adjust this using the reshape tool. There are two additional factors that affect a NURBS curve: a degree value and weighted control points or vertices. The degree determines how many points affect the curve. The default is 3, but can be adjusted before drawing a NURBS curve using the curve degree setting. The lower the number, the closer to the control points, and higher the number, the flatter the curve becomes. A degree of 1, for instance, would create a straight line like a polyline. Now, it's important to note that the degree of NURBS curve cannot be reduced after it has been created, so it's important to choose the correct degree before you start modeling. Now, each control point on a NURBS curve has something called weight. We can almost think of weight as a kind of gravity. If the weight is increased on a particular point, the curve is pulled towards it, and if the weight is decreased on one specific point, the curve is pushed away from it. The default is 1, so anything above 1 pulls the curve towards it, like we see with the teal NURBS curve, and anything less than 1 pushes it away from it, like we see with the orange NURBS curve, which is set to 0.5. Each control point or vertex has an x, y, and z value. So if we switch to an isometric view, we can move the control points along any of the axes using the 3D dragger represented with green, red, and blue arrows. So let's move on to NURBS surfaces. There are many ways to generate a surface, but let's go over one of my favorites, the loft tool. This allows you to generate a surface in between 2 or more NURBS curves, or by using a rail and profile using some of the other modes. Once the NURBS surface is created, you'll see additional control points along the surface represented with U and V values. These are similar to X and Y, but along the surface itself. You can increase the number of control points by increasing the degree for U and V via the Object Info palette. Once this is done, you can either move the control points individually with the dragger using the first mode, or if we switch to one of the other modes, you can move all of the U vertices all at once by just selecting one vertex, like we see here, selecting this corner one, or this back one. Or we can switch to the V, which will do the same thing, but move all of the V vertices along that all in one go. So really it's not that much different than manipulating a NURBS curve or just manipulating an entire surface. And for this last one, let's go over surface array. Essentially what this does is it grabs an object like we see here with this teal, and it duplicates it across a surface. In this case, we have a NURBS surface. So if we select Create Surface Array, we can have it repeat along the x-axis a certain number of times or by distance, and same with the y. We can choose to display the base surface or not. We can always make modifications afterwards, and we can also, instead of number of repetitions, we can select a very fixed distance. So in this case, they're both repeating every 5 feet, so we get a perfect square repeating along this. You can also adjust the y and x factor. So if we do 0.5, then we see that each one is offset half its shape. So let's move on. All right, let's go ahead and create the sculpture shade structure. I'm going to activate the NURBS curve, and we'll draw a 20-foot NURBS curve. I'll just make a copy of it and move it in the Z direction 8 feet. We can then use the loft tool and the no rail mode. We can select both NURBS curves. We can preview it. We can keep the curves. In this case, I'm not going to keep the curves. And if we double click it, we can immediately see the control points. There's only 4, so this isn't going to be enough detail. So what we can do is increase the degree for both the U and V. And in this case, I'm actually going to do 6 for the V. And then we can move the individual control points. Now if you shift click, you can move multiple. I'm going to move these out 4 feet. Next, I'm going to select the V vertices mode, and we're going to scale. So again, the V are going to be all the ones that are vertical, at least in this scene. and then U is going to be the ones that are more horizontal. So if we shift click these bottom 3, we can scale this. And I'm just going to type in 1/3 or 0.33 just to scale that. Next, I want to rotate this top one, so that's going to be the U vertices. And we can use this first mode again. Now if I do it from the edge, you can see that I can rotate the entire U, but I actually want to move this inward a little bit. So I can click this control point and use this 3rd mode to reposition it. I'm going to move this 4 feet, and this will be my point of pivot. We can switch back to the translate rotate mode, and I'm going to type in 25 degrees for this angle. This next part, I think it's easier to do this in orthogonal view, where we can tap on the number pad to view this from all different angles. Now, from a front view, I want these all to be aligned. So I'm going to go ahead and move those now. Now you can certainly do this in multi-view and jump between the different views, but I'm just going to stick to one view for now. So I'm going to switch this to just the single vertex point, and I'm going to adjust these so that they all line up to get the shape that I want. Just a few more. Two more, last one. Okay, and then let's switch views. From this side, I also want this to line up as well. Let's go back to an axon, and just to have more interest shape, I want the bottom to look more like an S. I can move this out a little bit. Let's go maybe a foot. And then I want this top part to open up more. So I'm going to grab this one and move this back. Let's go 12 feet. Now that's the shape I am looking for. So next, let's go ahead and create a surface array. And I'll switch back to a normal perspective view. Now you can use any of the listed array objects to create a surface array, but let's start off with just a simple rectangle. I'm just going to type in 4 inches and 4 inches, and I'll just place this anywhere in my drawing. We can select both objects, go to Model, Create Surface Array, and I'm just going to type in 10 for both. 1, you can display the base surface or not. We'll see what that looks like. So we have 10 going in both the U direction and the V direction, or X and Y. I can turn off the base surface. Let's increase this to 20. Now the issue with using a rectangle is we're going to have these openings that we see here because they're just planar objects trying to wrap around a curve. So if we go back in here, we can always go back to the array items and we can adjust this. Let's see what happens if we extrude this 4 inches. So essentially we just have a cube. If we close out of there, we see that we actually get depth between all of these, which looks pretty neat. There's some fun things you can do, like shift the offset. So if we do 0.5 for instance, you get like this brick effect, like a running bond effect, which is pretty neat, but this isn't really what we're going for. If we want the 4-inch post that we were seeing, we can change number of repetitions to a fixed distance and actually type in 4 inches. Give that a second to process. You see it's actually creating quite a few of them. And if I want a gap, and the gap to also be 4 inches, I can do a factor of 2. Now this is getting close to what I want, but you see that it's got these openings here and it's not necessarily what I want. So we can think about other objects that might work here. Now if I change this to 1, you'll see that that extruded object is just going to make all these straight objects. So what can we do to make these actually curve? So we can go back in here, go to array items, let's go ahead and delete that, and I'm going to draw just a simple line. We'll just make it 12 feet. and we can convert this to a NURBS curve. So let's go ahead and convert that to a NURBS and close out of here. It's still straight lines, but remember, we can adjust the degree. So let's go back here. Right now there's just 1 degree, so it's just 2 vertices. We can go to 6, for instance, which will start giving that curve. We could even go as high as 24, and we start getting some really nice curves here. So what can we use to get the shape we want? We could actually use extrude along path. So instead of doing that individually on each of these, let's go back here, and we can draw that square again, or rectangle, and run the extrude along path. So the array item is going to look like just a regular extruded rectangle, but it's extrude along path, and the path has a number of degrees, which allows it to bend quite easily. So if we close out of here, we get the shape we want. Next is going to be the bench. Now you can draw this with either the polyline tool or NURBS curves to generate a NURBS surface. In this instance, I set it to an elevation of 18 inches. And I'm just going to go ahead and group this so that we can focus on just this element here. So again, this is a NURBS surface, and we can do a couple things with it. We could use the push-pull and give it some thickness. So I'm just going to give it a thickness of 2 inches. And we can also extract the side. So even on curves, you can use the push-pull. So I'm going to add 18 inches to this as well, so that we have some seating here and just a nice little extension on this end. If we wanted to make this curved, we can add a fillet edge to this. So I'm just going to do 1 inch. And then last, we can apply a texture to it. And in this case, I'm going to change the map type to auto align so that it follows the curve. And then we can click out of there, and then ultimately we can start adding additional elements, maybe add flooring, apply different textures to the sculpture. In this case, I'm using a metal that's reflective. I wanted to see how the space felt underneath, so I added entourage elements. And then of course, because it is a shade sculpture, I added a light source object using the directional mode, which allows me to play around with the light and see how it interacts with the sculpture itself and see what kind of shadows are cast by that. Now, the last thing I want to leave you with is, even though this is a surface array object, it is using those extrude along path objects. We can actually explode this, if you will, or ungroup it by going to modify, ungroup, simply select yes, and we actually now have 61 individual extrude along path objects. This is fantastic if you wanted to fine tune any of these for whatever reason, if you wanted to delete them, or we could go into the reshape tool and we can start fine tuning any of these if that's something you wanted to do. So that's the sculpture shade structure. I hope you're able to take these methodologies of NURBS curves, NURBS surfaces, surface array objects, everything that we went over today. You can take these and apply them to a variety of different objects in product design, furniture design, you name it. NURBS modeling is a fantastic method, especially when working with curved shapes. So appreciate you all coming today, and with that, I'll pass it along. Thank you again.
Hi everyone, my name is Ryan, and I'll be showing you how to model a light fixture in Vectorworks fundamentals just by using simple 3D tools and utilizing classes and textures. Most of the tools we'll be looking at today are in the 3D modeling toolset. Let's get right into it. First, I decided to model the light bulb itself. I drew a circle and then created a class that has a glass texture within its attributes, so that when I set the circle to that class, it automatically takes on that glass texture when it's extruded. After I pulled up that extrusion, I used the fillet edge tool to soften the bottom edge of this extrusion a bit. A ½ inch looks good to me. To make this shape hollow, the shell solid tool is the way to do it. Select the tool and set the desired thickness, Then select the face of the shape you want to have an open edge. To model the filament, it's another extruded circle, but this time the extrusion has its own filament class. In that class, a glow texture is used. More on that later. Now let's model the socket of the light fixture. Draw a couple of circles and extrude them, then apply a plastic texture to them. Something about these textures, they are attribute textures, meaning you can have a color set for the fill and the texture will apply with that color. So the socket has a plastic texture with a black fill that I set in the attributes palette. Next up, I drew another circle, but this time I used the tapered extrude command, which is in the model tab at the top of the window. From there, I set the height and the angle that I want, and I joined all these socket pieces together by using the add solids command in the contextual menu. For the cord, it's another extrusion. Alright, great. Now the light bulb, the socket, and the cord are done. From here, I created a symbol with this geometry to keep stored as a resource, which lives in the resource manager. Okay, let's move on to other pieces. To make the horizontal pieces, I drew more circles and clipped circular holes in the middle of them using the clip tool. Then I extruded that so that a donut shape is shown. The horizontal pieces have their own class with a wood texture applied to it as well. For the vertical pieces, I started with 2D line work to draw the desired shape. I drew a polyline and then offset that with the close open curve setting enabled. With the reshape tool, I can convert one of the vertices to a Bezier curve to soften it a bit. And to soften even further, the fillet tool was used to round each corner. Cool, so now the 2D shape is ready to be extruded. Once that happens, it's assigned a wood texture via class settings, but a face override is used to show a different texture on the edges to show some variation. This vertical piece is then made into a symbol as well. Last steps in the process. I placed the vertical piece in position with the light bulb, socket, and horizontal pieces. Then I drew a circle from the middle of the whole fixture. I then used the duplicate along path command in the edit tab at the top of the screen and used the circle as a path and the vertical piece as the object to be duplicated. There are settings you can play with as well, like center object on path, tangent to path, and keep original orientation. You can preview the duplication as well. The final result is this. The whole light fixture is a hybrid symbol, so it has 2D line work as well as 3D geometry. Right before I created the symbol, I drew some 2D lines in the top plan view on top of my light fixture, so that becomes a hybrid. After you create the symbol, you can go back and edit the line work or the geometry, and it will update throughout the model automatically. With this step-by-step process, I was able to do some other light fixtures to go with it and create a couple of fixtures that vary in geometry that I could use as resources. So now to create some drawings from this model. I first created sheets and then created viewports of the light fixture, like in top plan view, elevation, section, and an elevation of the vertical piece itself. Each viewport has dimensions and notes drawn in the annotations of each viewport, and in the object info palette, there are settings you can change, like the background render, to hidden line, shaded, wireframe, or other render modes. For each viewport, there are also settings that can be adjusted in the object info palette, like scale, viewport crop, drawing title and number, layer and class visibilities, and so on. Also, you can create a viewport style, so that each viewport will automatically take on the style settings and you don't need to edit viewports over and over again. This saves you so much time and helps you with organization. On the subject of rendering, these light fixtures look so cool when using the shaded view in Vectorworks. I placed all of the light fixtures in a certain staggered fashion and extruded a black semicircle for a background. Remember how I mentioned the glow texture for the filament in each light bulb? That texture has a glow setting, and I made it extremely large. You can edit textures directly in the resource manager. That makes the filament look really, really bright. Also, within each light bulb fixture, I placed a point light in the bulb and gave it a warm light yellow color. Since I did that to the symbol, all instances where that bulb is placed is updated. With the point lights on, the shadows from each light look really prominent. To make the view pop even more, Vectorworks had shaded render view options where you can enable shadows, environment lighting, environment reflections, and so on. Also, there is a camera options tab where you can enable and edit depth of field, exposure, f-stop, and bloom, which is really neat because this is real-world camera settings. In this case, exposure is enabled and bloom is enabled as well. Bloom helps enhance extremely bright light, like the glow texture in the filaments. This is all in the shaded render mode, which renders instantly. From this view, you can create a viewport to show up on a sheet so that you have this view in your drawing set. There are other render modes than shaded, where the image can look more realistic or not, based on your settings. These views were using Vectorworks' in-house render engine called Renderworks. This mode has similar settings and takes only a couple of minutes to render, depending on the quality settings or the DPI of the sheet layer, but the results are amazing. And that's how you do it. Vectorworks Fundamentals is a great software for 3D modeling objects, creating drawings from that model, and then also rendering it to make it look amazing. In the next part of this presentation, we would like to show you some of the exciting new features of Vectorworks 2025. Vectorworks 2025 elevates the design software experience and allows designers to bring their best ideas to life without sacrificing quality or efficiency. Key enhancements focusing on intuitive visualization and interactivity include on-screen view control for quick model navigation, two-point perspective for easily creating architectural and photography perspectives, and object-level visibility for easily managing individual objects' visibility. Check out what else is new with Vectorworks 2025 at the What's New page on the Vectorworks website. Here are videos on the features we just mentioned.
Vectorworks gives you the ability to navigate around your designs freely and easily with the on-screen view control. This versatile interactive feature lets you move around your model by simply clicking a face, a corner, or edge to select a standard view or click dragging to get just the right custom angle. When you need to switch to your 2D top plan view, this toggle button gets you there and back with ease. Take control of your multi-view panes by simply hovering your cursor over the individual panes. Customize by clicking the on-screen view control settings icon in the far bottom left corner of the drawing window. If it is not active, the icon will display when you hover over here as shown. The on-screen view control consists of a 3D control cube, color-coded XYZ axes, and the compass ring. Each can be toggled on or off as needed. As you change the active working plane, the XYZ axes update in relation to the control cube. If you have a drawing that is geo-referenced, the compass ring provides the cardinal orientation of your view. The on-screen view control gives you the control you need close at hand to navigate through your designs, keeping you focused and saving time.
Using various types of projections can help you visualize your 3D models and create clear and authentic renderings of your projects. Two-point perspective is a specific type of presentation, traditionally using hand-drawing techniques across multiple design industries. In professional photography, it can be achieved through corrective lenses. Two-point perspective uses two vanishing points to create depth. Horizontal lines converge towards these points, while vertical lines stay parallel and undistorted. This technique helps depict objects and scenes with multiple angles more realistically. You can use this feature for various projects, including urban design, architecture, interior design, landscape architecture, scenic and stage design, product design, and more. Activating two-point perspective mode from one of the standard perspective projections is easy and intuitive with a single click. Go to the View menu, and while in a standard perspective projection, select two-point perspective. Once you activate a two-point perspective, it remains consistent as you navigate your model, using the orbit pan, or walkthrough tools, you can fine-tune your view, allowing you to design seamlessly without interruption. Saving multiple viewpoints of your project makes navigation easier and enhances your presentations. When you create a save view, viewport, or viewport style, the projection mode and its parameters are automatically saved. Using viewports, you can easily switch between different projection modes. This can be done dynamically through the Object Info palette. To create high-quality renderings, use a Renderworks camera object for better results. You can easily change the preferred projection of these cameras directly in the Object Info palette by selecting the desired projection mode. With cameras, you can apply various camera effects and control the field of view. You can access the settings for field of view through the Object Info palette, or the camera object, or directly within the design layers. In design layers, use a custom perspective projection mode combined with a 2-point perspective projection. This allows you to adjust the view dynamically via a slider. This feature gives you more flexibility for all your visualization needs. It allows you to stay in your creative flow with a simple toggle on and off. Create stunning and professional-looking presentations with ease and push your creative limits with 2-point perspectives.
Object-level visibility in Vectorworks lets you hide, ghost, or show selected objects at will. This allows you to quickly and flexibly create working views or presentation views that show just the objects you want to see. You can hide objects via menu commands, which affect all selected objects. Hidden objects are displayed ghosted with a light blue tint by default. Alternatively, choose to make them completely invisible using the Hidden Object Quick Preference. The V key on your keyboard also toggles these two states. The Unhide Objects button or menu command makes objects visible again. The Show Selected Objects Only command effectively isolates objects, hiding everything else. Use the Visibility tool to hide or show individual objects or entire classes or layers. When you have chosen to fully hide objects, the Visibility tool's Make Visible mode ghosts those hidden objects to help you identify them. And if you routinely want to show all the objects you have hidden, the Visibility tool has a preference for that. Simply enable that option and double-click the tool icon or its shortcut. The Object Visibility command lets you set custom criteria to hide or show multiple objects at the same time. Similarly, custom visibility can be applied through data visualization based on data-related criteria that you set. And objects that are not having their attributes changed by a data visualization can be hidden completely. When using multiple view panes and enabling the option for each pane to use individual visibilities, objects can be hidden in one pane and visible in another. Accelerate your presentation and documentation processes using custom visibility. When you hide objects and create a viewport, that custom visibility is saved, making it easy to isolate objects for presentation. When a viewport includes hidden objects, those objects are fully invisible, not ghosted. Visibility changes made while editing a viewport can be retained by activating the Apply Custom Visibility Changes checkbox. With saved views, hidden objects retain their hidden state when selecting the Custom Visibility option. When using the Visibility tool with viewports, you can hover over objects displayed in a viewport and hide them without having to go back to the design layer. The Visibility tool also allows you to show hidden objects in the viewport. And if you ever need to revert all visibilities in a viewport, the Reset Object Visibility button in the Object Info palette allows you to do so. Object-level visibility allows you to hide or show objects with great flexibility and speed, making it easy to create working views that accelerate your design process and presentation views that show just what you need.
And don't forget to visit our education page at vectorworks.net/education to download a free student license. There's also information for the Vectorworks Student to Pro program, Vectorworks Design Scholarship, and Vectorworks University. Thanks, everyone.
Perfect. Well, if y'all enjoyed that, thank you, Luis, Tony, and Ryan. This was definitely a very comprehensive walkthrough to using Vectorworks from general massing elements to the more detailed things that can go into different design disciplines, such as architecture, landscaping, even product design. It's always great to see what Vectorworks can do. Now, we're going to get started with our Q&A sessions. We have Ryan Butler here. He will be answering all your questions. Ryan, is there anything you want to say before we get started?
I don't have anything off the top of my head. I'm looking at the chat right now. I've been answering a couple of them. Julio says, will there be a recording available? I think we might have missed that at the beginning of the video. There will be a recording available. I think it will be on the YouTube channel, the AIAS YouTube channel. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yes, it'll be available. Now, okay. So I'm just right now. Anyone could shout out questions, but I'm reading off the chat here. So Jim says, I'm really new at this. Can I LiDAR scan a log and import it? Yes, you can. So Vectorworks, when you are a Vectorworks customer or you use Vectorworks, you have access to Vectorworks cloud services, and that can be accessed on your phone. And on your phone, if it's an iPhone, you can scan. You could do like a room plan scan, or you could scan an object, and then that can be imported into Vectorworks, and you can model off of that or start your project that way. I actually did that for my apartment when I had it, and I was scanning around and I scanned my whole apartment. It was really cool to actually see it in the model, in Vectorworks in the model, and I was able to build something and model something off of that. So it was really cool. Now you can do that with a bunch of other things too. You can do landscape objects, you can do architectural objects or any other type of object. There's another video on that at Vectorworks University, so you can get a full explanation on that as well. So try it out. It's really cool. Okay. So Jordan says, I was curious which software are compatible to 3D print or CNC these forms into physical manifestations. So I was also wondering if the Subd or NURBS form creation are compatible with parametric coding language such as Python. So, okay, first question. So yeah, so you can do you can create a model and then you can export it to an STL format or other type of format to import that into a CNC software. We've done that before, and I've actually done that when I was a student, not with Vectorworks, but I've used certain file types like OBJ or STL to do that. So it's very possible to do that with Vectorworks. You can check out all the different import and export options within Vectorworks and get your file type that you want. So that's pretty cool. Now, Subd and NURBS form creation, is that compatible with parametric coding like Python? We have a feature within Vectorworks called Marionette. Now, Marionette is kind of comparable to Grasshopper. You have those nodes and you have like the circuitry wiring to create like a parametric object. So you can do something like that. I personally don't know how to use Python. I don't code in Python, but Marionette is a cool tool to check out. And there's a sample file on Vectorworks University called, I think it is one of the residential files. And there is a marionette object in there where you can move certain objects and it will change according to the weather data, like the sun, this time of day. So it's pretty cool. There's a cool way to model something. And then also with marionette objects, there's a community on the Vectorworks forum where people talk about different scripts to use. So they can help you out with that too, or you could download sample ones too. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. So what else? Jim says, so no need to model a Corinthian capital. Yeah, that's kind of true. I've actually never really thought about that, but that would be pretty cool to try out. I agree. I don't want to model a Corinthian capital. I'd rather scan it. So that'd be cool to import. All right. Anybody else have questions? Just shout them out. I'm here.
Yes, now is the moment to type out any questions you may have for Ryan. I will say it is always eye-opening to see all the potential Vectorworks has for working with both like more simple shapes, such as like simple extrusions, but also NURBS modeling, which can be kind of tricky to do at times. And of course, doing it in a very holistic manner when you can have like the plans as well as the model and even some rendering views from that. So yeah, definitely worth checking out the Vectorworks website as well as the Vectorworks University education page so that you can learn more about everything we have been seeing today.
Yes, I just want to add one last thing. We have a couple of more workshops coming up in October and in November where I'm going to be speaking about how to model other objects as well. So stay tuned for that. And then also we have Vectorworks coffee breaks that happen every so often that talk about certain modeling techniques. And those are a little bit more casual than a webinar where a Vectorworks team member will walk you through a certain feature, and that's more conversational. What else? We have a lot of things coming up with Vectorworks. We have blogs that come out all the time. The Vectorworks newsroom, for example, that has all of our articles that we write, and we talk about Vectorworks. Webinars happen every so often, and then also those coffee breaks too. I urge you guys to check out Vectorworks .net/education to check out the free license for students, and then also there's more info there too. So check it out. It's really cool. I don't think I have anything else.
Perfect. Thank you, Ryan. And like you said, we are having more of these workshops. The next one will be happening in October 17th. So stay tuned and definitely register for that. Save your spot so that you don't miss out.
Yep.
Thank you, everyone. This was great. Have a great day.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good one.